Hi guys, welcome back to Young and Wifed Up. I'm Gabby and I have Marcella with me today on Zoom, as well as our friend Shannon, who is our Facebook group admin, and she has done so much for our Young and Wifed Up community. And she actually just celebrated her birthday last week, and so we did a little shout out for her on our Facebook group. And we have done an episode with Shannon in the past. I believe it was our last season. We did an episode on natural family planning. So if that's something that interests you, I will link that episode in the show notes so that you can go and listen to us chat with Shannon about natural family planning and all the basics with that. So, with that in mind, I'm going to just jump straight into our interview with Shannon. So, Shannon, welcome back to Young and Wifed Up.
Thank you.
And
Glad
so
to be here.
we have a really kind of a fun episode today with Shannon because even though she's not like an expert in this topic, she has accomplished something that many of us have never done in our whole lives.
Yeah.
And so she is the resident expert.
As far as we're concerned.
Yeah, as far as we're concerned. And so what we're going to be talking about today is the 1,000 hours outside challenge. So, Shannon, what is 1,000 hours outside?
So 1,000 hours outside is this is a direct quote from the official website. It's a global movement designed for any age child or adult and in any environment to track, sorry. So there are many things that make our time so easy to get backburned. We find that if we spend 4 to 6 hour chunks over a few days, shooting for roughly 20 hours a week, that comes to 1,000 hours outside. She created the challenge because she found out that the American child spends 1,200 hours a year in front of screens.
Wow.
And so with that 1,200 number, and then looking at what Charlotte Mason suggested, which was 4 to 6 hours in fair weather and 2 to 3 hours in the winter. Both of those numbers roughly add up to 1,000. And so Jenny Urich, who is the founder of 1,000 Hours Outside, she wanted a movement that competed with screens so that at the very least, kids were getting outside as much as they are watching screens. But when you're outside for 1,000 hours, there's definitely a lot less hours for screens. And so the outside is winning in this challenge.
That's awesome. And so I follow the Instagram accounts, and I think I'm in like a couple Facebook groups as well with people that take the challenge and they're showing the different ways that they do it. But if somebody like is listening to our episode today and they're like, wow, that sounds really cool. How could this benefit me and my family? What would your answer be for that?
So there's lots of benefits, both like physically, school wise, emotionally. Some of the like easy ones being like vitamin D comes from the sun. You get that from being outside. Immunity, being exposed, being outside, playing in dirt, being around animals. Being outside, especially in the morning, can actually help balance your cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone in your body.
Wow.
It can relieve anxiety and depression. You can sleep better at night. For kids, especially, it can help with motor skills, balance, um, uh, can cultivate a care for the earth and animals, and wanting to preserve it from a biblical standpoint. Um, it also gives kids the opportunity to take appropriate risks, like tree climbing and balancing on broken trees and whatnot. Being outside is a huge part of our schooling, just for nature study, which is the science that we do for elementary school. Um, so it's kind of an all-encompassing being outside. There's so many facets that we're doing all at once, honestly, just by having them be kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also really like that there's not a lot of rules with this challenge. Like, it's not like you must be outside and you must be participating in a sport, or you must be outside and live in a perfect climate. It's like, as long as your body is physically outside, it counts, right?
And honestly, that's another thing is each family can do it however they want. So I'm in some of the Facebook groups too, and I've seen debates over here and there, like, well, what counts as outside? And Ginny always comments, like, you decide, like, if being in a screened-in porch and a tent, or whatever, if you want that, if you think that's outside, then that's outside. If you don't, then you don't. Like, there's no rule. Like, this year we did a family tag team, if you will. If me or the kids were outside, I counted the hours. I didn't say, like, oh, all 5 of us or 6 of us have to be outside at exactly the same, because I was mainly doing this for my kids, but I wanted, kids do things better when they see you doing it. And so almost always, if I go outside to sit on the porch, they come, like, within 5 minutes, they're out there with me too. And so specifically, I just counted in general for us, and we met our goal. And next year I want to be more nitty gritty, and I want to track everyone individually to see kind of where we're at. And I know my oldest, like, he's the one that mainly got all the hours for us, but my 4-year-old was definitely a close second behind him. And so, yeah, it's just a fun. We've kind of made it into a competition, like, who can get the most hours outside by the end of the year, because now the app does let you track individually. And so I have started tracking us individually, and the kids are definitely winning over me.
Yeah. So how have you and your family specifically been able to do the 1,000 hours, like, with where you live, and, like, are you going to the backyard? Are you, like, going to hiking? Like, how are you doing that specifically?
So one of the main ways, in my opinion, that we were able to do this is I didn't have a whole bunch of goals for my kids this year. This was, like, the goal, aside from, the book work and the books we do, and, we do piano and stuff like that. Like, this was the real goal I wanted. And so I oriented a lot of our life around this goal. Some days for school, we were just outside. Like, that was what I thought was best. When, I'm in Tennessee, and so we only get winter, like, maybe like 1 month where it's really, like, challenging to get outside. But other than that, like I would send them outside first thing in the morning while I made breakfast, and then we'd eat. Lots of the time we'd eat outside. We do have a little fold up table that we can eat at outside. And then I'd come out with them, and I generally encourage independent play. And I have 5 kids, so they all pretty much have playmates already, and being outside with them is another way that I was able to reach one of my personal goals for the year, which was reading more than 100 books. Because I would either bring a book or, put my headphone in while I'm sitting on the porch or in my little folding chair, and just being outside with them. And I'm able to concentrate and still keep an eye on them, which is why I like audiobooks a lot. And in the summer, we push bedtime back. Sometimes 1, sometimes 2 hours, because they were just having a blast. And there's no law that says bedtime is 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And Declan, our oldest, is getting a little older, and so it wasn't a sacrifice to say, like, you know what, bedtime's just going to be 8:30, just to get those hours out. And we have a small grill, and so my husband will grill sometimes, and we'll just be out there. We've played games outside. We've brought board games outside. We, all the kids do have bikes. We have been really, really fortunate to have a really nice yard. And by nice, I just mean like it's open. When we were renting a house earlier in the year, we had like a carport situation where they could ride their bikes in just like a really small area. And then there was some grass where we have like a climbing dome, and they could run around. Now we live on 3 acres, and so there's plenty of space, but there's a lot of things that you already do inside that you could just move outside. We've tried schooling outside. It doesn't work that well for us. I think it's just because we mainly have littles and it's too distracting.
Yeah.
But we've done a lot of meals outside. I drink my tea and read my Bible outside every morning. Because my oldest are a little older, I can send them outside during quiet time, and I can rest on the couch. And that's where they got most of their hours. Was I would put the littles down for a nap, and I would take the boys out, and they'd go play, and would be out until bedtime. Really, they'd come in for dinner and go back out. And even my husband, and seeing how important this was for us to do this from now on, the few times where I have been unable to take them outside, he has not only taken them out, but like taken them out for hours on end.
Aww.
And I've been sick or had the baby, or when I was at a conference, and I'd text him because I, really wanted to keep track, like, oh, how long do you think you were outside? And I'm expecting like, well, 30 minutes or an hour. And he's like, we've really been outside here all day. Like, we came out after breakfast and they just had lunch, and I'm putting them down for a nap. So I guess that's like 4 hours. And I'm like, really?
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So I had some thoughts too while you were talking, because in your context, your winter that you're talking about, that's like really harsh weather, is for us in the West Coast our summer, because
it's really bad. Yeah,
because it'll get to like 120 and super dangerous.
Ooh.
And so like
I was even gonna ask, like, with Seth, he'll be 3 probably, maybe by the time this goes, I don't know, maybe not. And I worry because of the extreme heat, like, I would try to throw them out like as early in the morning as possible, like while I'm
Mhm.
making breakfast and the sun is like not really out yet. And then going later in the afternoon when when the sun's not like high in the sky. But then it's like, I guess in winter, like you can bundle up a whole lot, but in summer you can only take so much off. So,
Yeah.
like, do you have any tips on like how people could navigate that on like the more extreme side of like
So
it being
we
so
actually
hot?
do have we don't get up that high, but we are in the south. So we have the humidity.
Mm-hmm.
It does get really hot. And so what I've done actually is I've taken the 1,000 hours and looked at it over the whole year. And so I made individual goals for the month based off the average weather.
Okay.
And it didn't take a whole lot of planning. Like I've lived here for 6 years now. I know what the weather is generally like. And
Right.
so from January um, until June, our goal was 100 hours a month.
Hmm.
July, August, September was only 50 hours a month.
Okay.
That's when it's hot. It's easy for me to take the time. I don't want to say easy. I have made myself do it because I know it's worth it. Take the time to bundle them up the 1 month that it's really cold here. Like winters, we have really mild winters. Like it snows maybe 3 days a year, but we have all the snow gear because it does get cold even though it
Right.
doesn't snow.
Yeah.
We bundle up, we last as long as we last, and that's it. Like I really don't push in the extreme weather. It's when it's maybe just a little cold and they're feeling extra complaining that I'll be like, you know what? No, like put a jacket on and we're going to do this type of a thing. So you really have to know your own, you have to know your own weather really to know what's doable. I know in the Facebook group, Ginny has a little graphic like, oh, if
Yeah.
you mainly live in hot weather, like here are some good goals. And if you mainly live in cold weather, here are some good goals for like which months to be more heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me, it was just like once I saw that we were able to get almost 100 hours in January, I was like, okay, if we were able to get 100 a month, that's 1,200 a year. But I know our summers are really, really hot. So then I was like, oh, well, if I want 1,000, and I subtract all the good weather months, then I was left with 200 hours left. So I divided those over the 4 hottest months.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So I guess along the same lines of specific living situations that people might say that this challenge may not work for them and their family is families that live in apartment complexes or families that don't have a yard, or maybe like they live in a not in a very safe neighborhood and they don't feel comfortable throwing their kids outside in their backyard by themselves or for many hours during the day. Like what would you say? How could you encourage those families?
So the first thing I'd say is even trying the challenge, like it's a win. You're winning,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right? Even if like the first year we did it, um, which was last year, we only got 460 hours. And I was like, sure, we were going to meet 1,000, right? Like I went into this, like, we're going to do this. And then like very quickly, the year did not go the way I thought it was going to.
Mm,
And we didn't even get 500. And I was like, okay. And that's kind of when I was more like, how can I keep us on track so that I'm not just like on December 31st, like shocked at our
Yeah.
total? Like how can I check in with this throughout the year? And honestly, getting the app was a huge plus for us because I used to track on paper. Sometimes I'd have to guess and I couldn't remember what time we went out. And
Right.
anyway, the app has been, because it's just on like the home page of my phone. And I have just got into the mental habit of, as soon as we go outside, I grab my phone and I start the timer. And then through the app, it keeps track. And so I can see our app, I can see days, and it'll tally it up for the month. And then it'll give you little like badges that you can share on Facebook and Instagram, like once you meet certain milestones. So that's really fun.
Yeah, you have an incentive.
Yeah. And so back to the apartment situation. I know that I think it was on Ginny's podcast. She has a podcast, 1,000 Hours Outside, where she said that when she started, she would honestly pack up all her kids and go to the park for like hours and hours on end.
Mm.
So I know that sounds not doable. Like as a homemaker, when I first heard that, I was like, that's ludicrous. But honestly, I don't know if it's just like that Declan's growing up or that I've had, a handful more kids. But if you only have like a few kids and they're young, I would really encourage you to try it, because a homemaking doesn't, there's ways to cut corners without it dishonoring the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can adjust your priorities and do what is necessary to prioritize the physical and mental well-being of your children, especially if you're in the circumstance where you are stuck in an apartment and you feel like kind of trapped,
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to adjust, right?
And especially if coming as a homeschool mom, if you only have young kids and you view this time as their free education, when we have a school day, I don't just get to like go. I mean, I could technically, I'm at home, I'm in charge, I could do whatever I wanted, but I've decided for the sake of my kids, I'm not going to run and go do that one extra load of laundry, like in the middle of his spelling. We don't even do spelling, but reading lesson or whatever. Like I have blocked off our school time for me and them. Like, yes, sometimes my phone, I answer the siren call, or somebody calls, but mainly I have devoted that time to being hands-on with them. So if I take that time now to do that outside, that's equally as valuable as, teaching someone to read. Another thing is, depending on what kind of space you have, you can take your morning drink and sit on your front step.
Yeah.
And have your coffee or your tea. You can eat lunch or breakfast on the back step. I know a lot of apartments will at least have some little slab.
Right.
You could get chalk for your kids. Honestly, meals outside for kids are really fun.
And it's usually less cleanup for you too, because if they're spilling food, if there's outside, nobody cares.
Yeah. So, another thing would be to make friends with like-minded moms, or start your own play group. We're a part of a Wild and Free group that meets weekly. And so every Friday we're racking up like 3, 4, 5 hours outside, because we're at the park all day, all morning to mid-afternoon with our friends. And we do that every single week.
Yeah,
Mm.
you can count on at least those 5 hours out
Yeah,
there.
exactly. So yeah,
And it's always more fun with other people.
yes, the
Time will
timing
go by
definitely goes by
faster.
quicker.
Yeah.
There's just more, yeah, there's a social part, especially if you're going to the park. There's social interaction. I know, like, a big hot word with homeschoolers, buzzword. Um, it's kids are so, we just go to the park and, like, these kids don't even know each other, and, like, 5 minutes later they're like in some other world, like, with all these rules, and they do it, and they do it well. Like, that's what childhood is. Like, I remember we lived behind woods, or woods were behind us in the house that I was born in. And I would go out there and I pretend all sorts of things. Like, outside is just, it can be really special memories for kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's awesome. Do you have any other thoughts, encouragement, comments, or so say, okay, so maybe also thinking about like what would be something that you think would push somebody over the edge to really at least want to attempt to try, or even just saying like 1 hour outside a day and like pushing yourself and at least doing something? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways to go about it. You could say, like, I'm going to get outside every day, no matter what. Like, even if it's for 1 minute, like freezing on this front porch on a blizzard, like, I'm going to have, see the sun. You
Yeah.
you could say, on days when it's not good weather, I'm going to do X amount a day. Um, some, like, more fun ways that are just outside of your everyday life is you can plan a camping trip. You can do things like have birthday parties outside. Um, Little things really do add up. Um, the zoo is outside. You could ask for an experience gift and choose things that are outdoors. My mother-in-law buys me a zoo pass pretty much every year. Um, and they have an awesome playground, on top of all the animals that are there. But my
Yeah.
kids love the playground that's there because it's like 20 times cooler than anything we have local. You can challenge your husband and see if between the two of you, track your own individual hours and just see, like, oh, sometimes we read on the porch on Sunday night. We read individually, and he doesn't track his hours, but I always enjoy seeing him outside, just because, this is what I want us to keep this up for the long haul. If you really need to push over the edge, some good books for beginners so Jenny Urich has written an official book. It's called 1,000 Hours Outside. It's not on Amazon, but it is sold on her website, 1000hoursoutside.com.
Okay.
Barefoot in Balance, There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather, and The Last Child in the Woods are all books that some are more heavy in the statistics. Barefoot in Balance is really statistic heavy, but if you're someone that, like, really wants to feel like mentally convicted on why, like, you don't really get it, you want to know, like, yeah, they say it's better for my kids, but why? Like, this book had a lot of facts. So it's a tiny bit on the drier side, but I enjoyed it. Especially There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather was a great book. Only bad clothing is like the
The main
saying.
premise, yeah.
You can, like, find a friend and see if you want to, like, kind of do it family style like we did this year, and have another friend do it family style and have like a family to family competition, like who can get the most hours. There's just all sorts of little ways that you can just start having, one meal a week outside and,
I like
let
that.
it grow from there.
Yeah.
Or, once a month do a stargazing night with your kids, or especially now that it's getting dark at like 5 p.m. We don't have to stay up late to see stars. There's honestly I would just say, like, just do it and try it. And at first, if you hate it, push through it a little harder.
Yeah.
Because it can, like, it's wet sometimes. There's bugs, like, or it's hot and I'm sweating. And I just put my hair up in a bun and I just say, this is life.
Yeah.
and just try it, and like, don't be militant about it, but one of the quotes from Charlotte Mason is about when she's talking about how long to be outside. She says, long hours they should be, not 2, but 4, 5, 6 hours. They should have on every tolerable fine day from April to October, 2 to 3 hours every day in the open air all throughout the winter. Impossible, says an overwrought mother. Let me repeat, but I venture to suggest not what is practicable in any household, but what seems to me absolutely best for the children. And that in the faith that mothers work wonders once they are convinced that wonders are demanded of them. That's in home education.
I love that quote.
So I know it is no easy feat to get, any number of kids outside with good attitudes and leaving you alone. Like, it is not, but it has been worth it.
It's so cool too. Like we were talking about, I think in one of last month's episode, talking about how the Lord uses the outdoors sometimes as like a common means of grace for like bad attitudes and a grumpy, complaining spirit,
or even just
in ourselves.
With a lot of like pent up energy.
like it's so tempting for us to rage out even as adults inside, because we're like, it's just, I just really don't think that we are meant to be inside all day, every single day. And especially with the nature of like, I mean, in me and Ryan's circumstance, Ryan works from home. He stares at a screen all day. And then when I'm working, like I'm in the homemaking. And then when I'm working, I'm sitting on my butt teaching piano, inside. And so it's like, there's some ways where I'm like, how this could be impossible for us. But then like, I know when we even go on like a short walk together in the morning, we're just like, wow, that was so good. Like, thank you, Lord, for that. Sometimes you really do need to be outside. And I think this challenge is just so beautiful. And again, I really like your encouragement that when you did it last time, that you didn't accomplish 1,000 hours, but you still accomplished something that I certainly didn't do, this year. That a lot of people aren't even willing to try,
I remember seeing when I first discovered like the whole 1,000 hours outside movement. I don't remember if it was on one of the Facebook groups or on her Instagram or blog or something like that, where one of the moms who was trying to do the 1,000 hours outside and they didn't end up accomplishing it. They essentially failed the challenge. And she was saying like the best thing that happened to us was failing this 1,000 hours outside challenge, because it means we tried. And it also means that we got outside significantly more than if we hadn't have tried at all. So it's like, even if you don't complete the 1,000 hours and that seems impossible to you, like I think you were saying, like, you don't need to be militant about it. Like if it's just smaller goals, like I just want to get outside more. And that's even though it's really vague and maybe not as specific as tracking the hours and that sort of thing, just merely getting outside more is worth it in itself to just try, even if you don't get to the 1,000 hours in a year. So that was really
another thing that people could try. And at first I was going to try it this year, and then just I didn't for whatever reason, is trying to match the screen time with at least that much.
That's something I'm
outside.
thinking about for myself.
So if you know that you or your kids or, you know, whoever you're doing this for is spending like, you know, 30 hours on screens a week, like passive, you know, I would not count working, you know, as my husband's not going to spend 9 hours a day outside every day on top of his work. You know, it's just that. But on like passive, just, you know, entertainment, trying to match that outside, then that's what the challenge was made for. Like you're already, like you want to talk. I'm only a few chapters in, but she talked about balancing virtual world with reality. So if you can even just do that a little, and maybe you don't watch screens that much, well, then there's an easy way to start. Maybe you only watch 1 hour a day. Okay, you can get outside for 1 hour a day. And just build on that habit. And then next year or next month, hey, we're going to double our outside time to the screens. And then you just go from there.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Marcel, do you have any other questions or thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon, for your time, and congratulations to your entire family for accomplishing that amazing goal. And it certainly has motivated and inspired me. And I know a lot of other families that follow you on social media, that it's like we all are like rooting for each other, and it's really cool when you see somebody complete something so like, I don't know, it's countercultural, you know? It's not what you usually see in the world. So thank you, Shannon, so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We will talk to you next week, and we hope you have a blessed time. Bye.
Bye.